Hey guys, we're doing part 2 today of the story with John Burroughs. So we left off yesterday on page 15. Today we're starting on page 16. And the story, the way that the story is told, or the writing is told, it chunks it very nice for a lot of many main ideas. So we're going to still focus on the key details and the main ideas as we read through the rest of the story. So every time we have our regular print and they're kind of talking about how Burroughs develops in the next part of the story, we'll do key details and main ideas for that section, and then we'll kind of chunk it when we get to another regular print where it talks about something else. So starting in paragraph 10, we have Burroughs now develops his main character. So we're going to be focusing on the development of his main character, the chipmunk, by describing its actions. How cool, because we just talked in our last unit about how characters reveal themselves through actions and dialogue. Note, though, that Burroughs, as the storyteller, is a part of the story, too. So he's not telling it from that third-person perspective, from looking outside in. He's actually in the story. So our key details, we really want to focus on this chipmunk, the development of the main character, so that when we get ready to write our main idea, it can be mostly about the chipmunk. I was much amused one October in watching a chipmunk carry nuts and other foods into his den. I just noted the word amused. It's a really good vocabulary word. It's describing how John Burroughs feels. He had made a well-defined path from his door out through the weeds and dry leaves into the territory where his feeding ground lay. The path was a crooked one. It dipped under weeds, under some large loosely piled stones, under a pile of chestnut posts, and then followed the remains of an old wall. So I can see right here that all of these great descriptive details are defining this well-defined path from the door out through the weeds where his feeding ground lay. Going and coming, his motions were like clockwork. I liked this sentence because it reminded me yesterday for my kids when we read the poem Waiting about that timelessness of nature. He would pause a breath with one foot raised, slip quickly a few yards over some dry leaves, pause again by a stump beside a path, rush across the path to the pile of loose stones, go under the first and over the second, gain the pile of posts, make his way through that, survey his course a half moment from the other side of it, and then dart on to some other cover, and presently beyond my range, where I think he gathered acorns, as there were no other nut-bearing trees other than the oaks near. Okay, so this is very descriptively. Do you guys hear yesterday we talked about all that descriptive language that Burroughs uses? So much description of the actions of the chipmunk. And all of these actions are leading to where he would gather his acorns. In 4 or 5 minutes, I would see him coming back. So this would take place for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then he would come back, always keeping rigidly to that course he took going out, pausing at the same spots, darting over and under the same objects, clearing at a bound the same pile of leaves. There was no variation in his manner of proceeding all the time that I observed him. Okay, on the next page, we're going to go into something different. So looking at what we have, the details we have highlighted, we're looking at the course the chipmunk took in order to gather his nuts and his food. So I think it's important that we note this idea that there was no variation in the manner that he went, because we see all the way in paragraph 12, he made a well-defined path, and then all the way through here, we see his motions were like clockwork. He would go through these things, get his nuts, go back through those things to come back to his den. Okay, so I think Burroughs put a lot of emphasis on the fact that his path was very routine. So in talking about what this part was mostly about and our main idea to the side here, we can say, I'm going to put MI for main idea. The chipmunk follows the same path and actions when going to gather nuts, and returning. Remember, in a main idea, we don't need all that amazing detail. We just need the basics. The chipmunk follows the same path and actions when going to gather nuts and returning. You can pause it here if you need to catch up with that part. Okay, here's our next little chunk. A good storyteller must do more. He must do more than create appealing characters. Burroughs fills his writing with drama. Oh, fourth graders love drama. It is the natural excitement, and I love that they define the word drama by telling you that's the natural excitement found in the wild. That's the drama he's talking about. In the next passage, Burroughs sees a cat also observing the chipmunk, so our plot's going to change a little. He describes the actions of the predator and of the prey. He further engages the reader by wondering what the cat and the chipmunk will do. Okay, so he's going to lead us to wonder what's going to happen. So our main idea should have something to do with the actions between the cat and the chipmunk. One summer day, I watched a cat for nearly half an hour trying her arts upon a chipmunk that sat upon a pile of stone. Evidently, her game was to stalk him. So that's what he's thinking is going to happen. She's going to stalk him. She had cleared half the distance, or about 12 feet, that separated the chipmunk from a dense Norway spruce, when I chanced to become a spectator of the little drama. There sat the cat, crouched low on the grass, her big yellow eyes fixed upon the chipmunk, and there sat the chipmunk at the mouth of his den. So I'm going to just note, she's crouched low in the grass, that was the cat, and the chipmunk is at the mouth of his den, motionless, with his eyes fixed upon the cat. So they're looking at each other. They've both noticed each other. For a long time, neither moved. Will the cat bind him with her fatal spell, I thought? Sometimes her head slowly lowered and her eyes seemed to dilate, and I fancied that she was about to spring, but she did not. She did not spring upon the chipmunk. The chipmunk finally quickly entered his den. Then the cat slunk away. I'm thinking, yeah, that's the end of that page. So let's talk about the main idea here. Mostly, this is talking to us about the cat watched chipmunk who also watched him until I wrote those too close together, till the chipmunk went into his den. Okay, oops. There you go. You might want to pause here, catch up with that. And then we have our last page. There's a picture of Burroughs at the Yellowstone National Park, fishing. Burroughs was a lifelong nature writer. We already have read this several times, who kept his eyes, ears, and heart open. He observed the world around him. I know a lot of you guys mentioned this in one of your assignments recently. He brought out its energy in a personal way, giving it a deeper emotional meaning. It is as if the reader is experiencing Burroughs' experience at the same time. We've also read that recently. making his view of the natural world ours too. Toward the end of his life, Burroughs wrote in The Summit of the Years about the time he had spent observing nature. The longer I live, the more my mind dwells upon the beauty and the wonder of the world. I have loved the feel of the grass under my feet and the sound of the running streams by my side, the hum of the wind in the treetops as has always been good music to me. And the face of the fields has often comforted me more than the faces of men. I am in love with this world. I love this last paragraph. It kind of touches the idea of what Burroughs sees, hears, feels, all of those things that provide those details that he provides us, and the things that comfort him with nature. And we could write an easy main idea about this one. Nature provided Burroughs with many years of comfort. We could leave it at that. You could have also written something that sounded quite different but the same, but that was just the short version, because he ended it talking about the comfort and how he was in love with the world and all of the things that nature provided him to make him feel that way. All right, friends, come to class today ready to talk a little bit more about what we've read this week, and some words that we've come across in our reading, and we're going to kind of use context clues to decide what those meanings are. See y'all in just a little bit.